You know that feeling when the market closes, and you're just sitting there, staring at the screen with this empty, hollow rage burning inside you? Not because of one loss. No. It's because of that chaotic, feverish stream of trades you just went on. You were clicking button after button, like your life depended on it. Every new candle felt like a new reason to jump in. Every tiny pullback looked like a signal. And then, silence. The charts go still, and you see it. A dozen orders, more than half in the red. And the main question hits you right in the face. Why? Why did I do all that? I had one of those days, the kind that makes you want to throw your monitor out the window. I was in a pit. Not just a drawdown, but an emotional abyss. I felt like a gambler who'd lost his last dime but kept hitting the button, believing in a miracle. I called my mentor, not for analysis advice. I called because I was ashamed. Ashamed of my weakness, my lack of control, this pathetic circus I'd performed on the chart. I told him, I blew it. Again. I traded a bunch of junk. I can't stop. It's like an addiction. I expected another lecture on discipline, but he just asked one question. How many real setups were there today? Your A-plus setups. The truly high-quality ones? I went silent. Because I knew the answer. 1, maybe 2. And how many trades did I take? 12. That's how many trades I took. 12 desperate, hopeful, chaotic clicks against maybe 1 or 2 moments of actual planned opportunity. The silence on the phone stretched out. He let that number hang there, heavy and stupid, in the air between us. I could feel the heat of my own embarrassment through the phone. Finally, he spoke, and his voice wasn't angry. It was calm, curious almost. So you saw 1 or 2 gifts from the market, and you gave it back 12 pieces of your mind, of your discipline, of your capital. He paused. Tell me about trade number 3, the one after your first real setup. Why was it there? I fumbled. I started talking about a small resistance level, a little pin bar forming, how the volume looked. But my voice trailed off. It was weak, and we both knew it. Stop, he said softly. Stop talking about the chart. Tell me what you felt when you took trade number 3. Be honest. This is the only place where the truth matters.
I took a deep breath. The memory was vivid, ugly. I felt impatient. The first setup worked. It hit my take profit, and it felt good. Too good. I wanted that feeling again. Right away. The market was moving, and I was scared to just sit and watch it without me. I felt like if I wasn't in a trade, I was missing out. So I saw something that looked close enough to my setup, and I jumped in. Just to be in. There it was. The raw, pathetic engine of my overtrading. Not analysis, but emotional discomfort. The pain of waiting. The fear of missing out. The addiction to the action itself. My mentor made a sound, a low hum of understanding. Good, he said. Now you're starting to see the real chart, the one inside you. The market gave you one clear message today, and you replied with 11 separate arguments, 11 emotional reactions. You weren't trading the market. You were arguing with it. You were trying to force it to give you what you wanted when you wanted it.
He let that sink in. I stared at my messy chart, the graffiti of my failure, and for the first time, I didn't just see bad trades. I saw a timeline of my own anxiety, my greed, my fear. The problem isn't that you don't see the setups, he continued. The problem is you can't stand the silence between them. And that silence is where real trading happens. That's where the rule lives. What rule? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The only one that will ever fix this, he said. But to understand it, You need to understand what you're really fighting. It's not the market. It's the story you tell yourself in that empty space. The story that says, do something. The silence between setups, the empty space, the quiet. That's where I was losing the war. Not during the analysis, not during the execution of my plan, but in the dead zones, the boring, sideways chops of time where nothing met my rules. That's where the monster of overtrading was born. My mentor didn't give me a complicated system of filters or a new indicator to add. He didn't tell me to lower my lot size or take a break. He knew the problem was deeper. It was a reflex, a psychological itch that demanded to be scratched by action. Let me tell you about a guy named Leo, he said. Smart, disciplined backtester. Knew his strategy inside out. His problem was the afternoons. The London session was closed, New York was slow, and the charts would just breathe. He'd have his 1 or 2 morning trades. Done. Then he'd sit for hours watching this quiet market. And slowly, a thought would creep in. Maybe my edge works in this low volatility too. Let me just test it. He paused, letting me see myself in Leo. I was already nodding. His testing was just dressed up gambling. He'd start bending his rules. Oh, this is almost a pin bar. This structure is close enough to what I trade. He was so afraid of the stillness, of not being productive, that he manufactured activity. He traded not because the market offered an opportunity, but because his own boredom and insecurity were intolerable. That's me, I admitted, the confession a relief. It's like I need constant validation that I'm a trader. If I'm not in a trade, who am I? Exactly, my mentor said, his voice sharpening. And that's why all the standard advice fails. Just be more disciplined. How? The trigger isn't logical, it's emotional, it's the itch. So you don't fight the itch with willpower. You remove the fingernail, you make it impossible to scratch. He finally laid it out. The rule. It was so simple it felt insulting. You are only allowed to take the first high-quality setup you see in a session. Just one. After that, you walk away. The session is over for you. I blinked. What? Just one? That's it? But what if it loses? He interrupted. Then it loses. You took your best shot. The market said no. Thank it for the clarity and stop arguing. What if another perfect setup forms right after? Doesn't matter. Your job is not to catch every move. Your job is to execute your one plan with perfection and then have the strength to do nothing. The rule isn't about catching profits. It's about surgically removing your ability to make emotional, reactive, second-tier decisions, he continued, the words etching into me. This rule does one profound thing. It transfers the pain. Right now, the pain of missing out, the pain of boredom, the pain of inactivity, it feels unbearable, so you trade to make it stop. This rule makes the pain of breaking your rule even greater. The discomfort of walking away becomes your victory. The itch to take a second trade meets a wall. I am not a person who does that anymore. It wasn't a trading rule. It was an identity rule. You're not teaching me to trade better, I whispered. I'm teaching you to become the person who doesn't need to trade, he replied. Only then will you be free enough to trade well. Let me tell you about Alex, a guy from our community. He was a classic case. He knew his strategy. He could backtest it and show you a smooth equity curve. But live, he was a disaster. He'd make a great trade, then lose the profit plus more on the next 5 mediocre ones. He was a net positive analyst and a net negative trader. The disconnect was killing him. He came to me after blowing his 3rd funded account challenge. Not from one big loss, from 1,000 paper cuts. His stats were a joke. 1 win, 7 losses. 1 win, 5 losses. His journal was a monument to overtrading. Felt bored. Saw it moving, jumped in. Wanted to get back yesterday's loss. He was exhausted, a walking corpse of doubt. He said, "I know what to do. I just can't seem to do it. It's like I'm possessed when the market is open." I gave him the same rule, the one rule. He looked at me like I'd slapped him. "1 trade, that's all. I'll never pass a challenge with 1 trade a day. I'll never make money."
I asked him, "What's your profit target for the challenge?" He said, 10%. I said, "And what's your risk per trade?" He said, 1%. I did the math for him slowly. So you need 10 successful one-to-one risk-reward trades, not 100 chaotic ones. 10 clean, planned, high-quality executions. Your job is not to find 10 trades today. Your job is to protect your capital and your sanity until one of those 10 perfect setups appears. This rule doesn't limit your profit. It protects you from yourself. I made him promise, not to me, to himself. He had to write it down. I am a 1 setup trader. I will take the first A+ setup. Then I will close the platform. My session is done. I am not a machine. I am a sniper. The first week was torture for him. He'd take his 1 trade, often within the first hour, win or lose, and then the itch would start. He'd see another setup forming, a good one. His fingers would twitch. He'd message me, "This is a perfect retest. It's literally textbook. Can't I just—"
My reply was always the same. "What is the rule?" He'd type back, frustrated, "1 trade, walk away." "Then what are you doing still looking at the chart?" He'd shut it down. "Go for a walk." He said those walks felt like withdrawals. But something happened. The pressure lifted. The anxiety of what's next vanished because there was no next. His entire focus narrowed to a laser point. Find the first A+ setup. Nothing else mattered. The market noise faded. Then came the test. A day his first setup was a clear winner. He took his 1% profit. And 5 minutes later, another flawless setup materialized on the same pair. The kind he used to dream about. He sat there, his account green, watching this gift of a pattern form. His old self was screaming, pounding on the glass. "You idiot! Get in! It's free money!" But he didn't. He closed the platform. He told me later his heart was racing. He felt like he was leaving a winning lottery ticket on the table. But he also felt something new. Power. Not the fake power of clicking buttons, but the real power of saying no to a sure thing because it violated his new identity. He was no longer a prisoner of opportunity. For the first time, he was in control. The rule didn't save him from a loss that day. It saved him from a far more dangerous trap, the belief that he could have it all. It proved to him, in the most visceral way, that his word to himself was stronger than his greed. That was the day Alex stopped being a loser in a drawdown and started becoming a trader. I know what you're thinking right now. I thought it too. Alex definitely thought it. It's the single biggest mental block to the one rule. It's the whispered lie that kills discipline every single time. What if this next candle is the big one? What if this is the start of the trend of the year, and I'm sitting on my hands because of some arbitrary rule? This fear, the fear of missing out, FOMO, isn't just an emotion in trading. It's the engine. It's the siren song that lures you off your plan and onto the rocks of overtrading. You're not afraid of losing money on a good setup. You're terrified of not making money you imagine is yours. My mentor knew this was coming. After laying down the one rule, he leaned back and said, "Now let's murder the ghost that's going to haunt you, the ghost of the move that got away." He told me a story from his early days, during the dot-com bubble madness. He had a simple trend-following system. One day, he took his one signal early. It was a small winner. Then, the market absolutely exploded. A historic, parabolic rally. His system would have given him 3 more entry signals on that surge, each one bigger than the last. He sat there, watching the charts turn neon green, his rule forbidding him from touching it. "I felt physically sick," he admitted. "Every cell in my body was screaming to jump in. My friends were calling, yelling about the money they were making. I was missing out on what felt like a generational opportunity. I broke my rule. I chased. I entered late with way too much size, desperate to catch up. The result? The parabolic spike ended in a violent 5-minute reversal. It wiped out his initial win and took a huge chunk of his capital. His friends who had been in earlier got out fine. He was left holding the bag, nursing a loss born entirely from the pain of watching others win. "That day," he said, his voice quiet and firm, "I learned the most valuable lesson of my career. You must learn to love the moves you miss. You must celebrate them." I was confused. "Celebrate missing a profit?" "Yes," he said, "because the move you miss is not a punishment. It's proof. Proof that your system works. It got you in before the crowd went insane. Proof that you have discipline. You didn't chase the frenzy. And most importantly, it's a payment. You paid the price of a missed profit to protect yourself from the catastrophic loss that inevitably follows blind chasing. That's the best deal you'll ever get." He reframed everything. Overtrading isn't about seeking profit. It's about running from the pain of seeing profit happen without you. The one rule makes you sit in that pain. It makes you feel the FOMO fully, and then let it pass without acting. "The market will always have another move," he said. "Always. But your capital and your confidence are finite. Would you rather have a small, steady account that's under your control, or a battered, depleted one that's been bled dry by your attempts to catch every single wave? The traders who blow up aren't the ones who miss moves. They're the ones who refuse to accept that missing is part of the game." The goal was no longer to catch everything. The goal was to be so emotionally detached that you could watch a perfect setup go by after your one trade and say, "Good for you, not mine." That detachment, he promised, was where true edge was born, understanding. The rule was one thing. Believing in its philosophy was another. But living it? That required a breaking point. My mentor issued a challenge that sounded absolutely insane. For one full trading week, you will not place a single trade. "Not one trade?" I asked, panic already rising. "How will I practice the rule? How will I make any progress if I'm just watching?" "You will practice the only thing that matters right now," he said, his voice leaving no room for debate. "You will practice inactivity. You will watch the market during your usual hours and do nothing. You will find your A-plus setups, mark them, and watch them play out without you. You will feel every itch, every twitch of FOMO, every clever reason your brain invents to break your discipline, and you will sit on your hands." This isn't a trading exercise. This is exposure therapy for your addiction to action. The first day was pure psychological torture. Within an hour, I spotted a textbook-perfect setup. My hand moved to the mouse on pure muscle memory. I had to physically get up, walk away, and stare out the window. I watched that setup hit its take-profit target without me. A hot wave of nausea and regret hit me. I just left money on the table. The old, desperate voice in my head was screaming. Day 2 was worse, but in a different way. The market was choppy, messy. I saw 3 separate shaky setups I would have normally jumped into just to feel involved. I watched each one fail miserably. And for the first time, I felt a new sensation, profound relief. A quiet, calm voice whispered, "Thank God that wasn't me." Day 3 was the revelation. A major news event hit. The market spiked with violent, irrational volatility. My old self would have been a frantic mess, throwing orders into the chaos, trying to catch the falling knife or ride the rocket. Now, I just observed. I saw the chaos not as a field of opportunity, but as a minefield. I watched traders in online forums and streams get whipped from euphoria to panic in seconds. I wasn't one of them. I was an observer. The detachment I felt wasn't boredom. It was peace.
By day 5, something fundamental had rewired itself. The constant noise of the market had faded into a background hum. The charts were no longer a trigger demanding a response, but a stream of neutral data I was free to acknowledge or ignore. The desperate need to be in the game was gone. I had proven to myself, in the most concrete way possible, that my survival and my worth were not tied to my number of trades. Doing nothing was not just an option, it was often the most powerful position. At the week's end, I called my mentor. "I finally understand," I said, my voice steadier than it had been in months. "The rule isn't a cage, it's the key." I spent 5 days watching the market offer me both gifts and traps. By not taking a single one, I saved capital, saved my sanity, and learned more about my own weaknesses than 3 months of active trading had ever shown me. The hardest trade is the one you don't take. "Now you're ready," he replied. "Now the real work begins."
You might think, after a week of enforced silence, that the war was won. I thought so too. I felt calm, in control, almost superior. I had stared into the void of inactivity and hadn't blinked. I was ready to apply the one rule for real, but the market, and more importantly, my own brain, had other plans. My first official day trading with the one rule arrived. I spotted my A+ setup within 30 minutes of the session open, a clean rejection at a key level. I took the trade. It was a thing of beauty. Precise, planned, emotionless. It hit my take profit. I was up for the day. Rule followed. Victory achieved. I closed my trading platform. That was the rule. Walk away. But my brain didn't walk away. An hour later, an insidious thought slithered in. Just check. Just see how that setup you didn't take is doing. It felt innocent, curious even. I wasn't going to trade, just observe. I reopened the chart. The market had moved. Another beautiful pattern had formed and played out perfectly. A second A+ setup, just sitting there in the recent past, mocking me. The old, familiar cocktail of regret and FOMO began to mix in my gut. See? You could have had 2 wins today. The rule is costing you money. This was the real enemy, not the impulsive, emotional overtrading of my past, but the sophisticated, logical-sounding negotiation my mind was now attempting. It was using my own discipline, my desire to review and learn, against me. My mentor had warned me about this. He called it the brain's bureaucracy. Your mind hates vacuum, he explained later when I told him about my spiral. Its job is to solve problems, seek patterns, and do things. Inactivity is processed as a threat, a waste of resources. So when you impose a hard rule like one and done, it doesn't just surrender. It starts filing appeals. It creates subcommittees of doubt. What if we just review? What if we paper trade the next one? It's trying to loophole its way back into the dopamine cycle of action and reward. The solution, he said, wasn't to fight the thoughts. It was to outsmart the process. You have to create a ritual of closure so definitive, your brain accepts the session is over. Closing the platform isn't enough. You need a physical, tangible action that signals completion. He shared his own ritual. After his one trade, he would record the trade in his journal with a final note. Session complete. Physically unplug his secondary monitor, his charting screen. Do 10 push-ups right there on the floor of his office. It sounds stupid, he laughed, but the push-ups are key. It's a physical, mildly strenuous act that disrupts the obsessive mental loop. It tells your physiology, we are now in a different mode. The brain loves clear signals. You're giving it one. I implemented my own version. After my one trade, I would journal, close all trading software, and then immediately go for a brisk 5-minute walk outside. No phone, no market news. The change of environment and sensory input acted as a circuit breaker. The first few times, my mind still raced during that walk. What's happening on EUR/USD right now? But slowly, the walk became associated with relief, with freedom. The itch to check faded because the ritual reliably showed my brain that nothing good came from it, only the peace of being done. I was no longer just managing trades. I was managing my own neurochemistry. The one rule wasn't just a trading strategy. It was a behavioral hack to short-circuit my brain's innate, self-destructive craving for unnecessary action. I wasn't fighting the urge to overtrade anymore. I was systematically dismantling the pathway that created the urge in the first place. That walk became my sanctuary. It was the physical line between the trader and the man. With each step, the residual adrenaline faded, replaced by a quiet certainty. I realized the one rule had never really been about limiting my trades. It was a scalpel, a tool to surgically remove the part of me that confused activity with achievement and noise with opportunity. It forced me to build a life outside the charts, because a one-trade day leaves you with hours to fill. I started reading again. I called friends. The desperate, clawing identity of being a trader softened into something healthier. I was a person who traded with discipline for one clear moment each day, and then I lived. The market's greatest gift wasn't the profit from that single setup. It was the return of my time, my peace, and my attention. Everything else was just noise I had learned to walk away from.